All right. Hello. I'm hoping to be with you in person, but for some reason, if you are watching this recording, it's because I'm growing a little human and maybe she's making her way into the world. And so that would be why you're watching this recording and I'm not able to be there with you in person. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Dion Vallejo and I have been coming to Res Life for the last couple years now, and I oversee the women's ministry here. And I just have such a heart for women, and I love your age group. I was thinking about just kind of my journey and my story of where I was when I was your age. And something like this would have been so helpful in helping me navigate through that season of really the in-between, of where we're really going from being youth to really coming into what it means to be a woman, really be a woman of God and who He has designed you to be in your fullest expression. And my heart today is I really want to share from His heart and His design of really knowing to love God as your first love, and that He is fully capable of doing just such a significant work. And I want to share a little bit of my story about the significant work that He did in my life to really bring me into the beautiful blessing of marriage that I have today. Whether you end up married or not, like, that's not really the point of this, but it's really of just getting to know that God loves you so deeply and that you would have this mutual love of Him too. I'm going to give you just 3 tools today. So one is just to waiting on God's best and the blessing that comes from that. 2 is that you would allow yourself to be pursued by perfect love. When you're pursued by perfect love, then you know when a good love comes around, whether it's like God's love or just like your flesh love, and there is a difference, and I want to share that with you today. And the thirdly is that just to be okay with letting go of how it should look, how it should be, what they're doing, like just be okay with letting go to really fully embrace like what God truly has for you. You are so significantly special to Him, and I want to share that with you today. A little bit about my background. I was born and raised in Traverse City. My parents loved God. I grew up in the church, so I had a foundation of who God was, but I always kind of kept Him at a distance. It wasn't really personal. I seemed to only cry out to Him when I was desperate, when I really needed help, when I was really getting in trouble. Just because I have that foundation of like the good Christian, I still went through a lot, and I have a lot of alcohol and drug abuse in my past, and jail and rehab, and just very, very challenging times. And by His grace, He has led me to such a redeeming, true love story that I cannot help but just share like His love is enough. And it really was by me being open and allowing Him to pursue me in a way that I've never been pursued before. All right, so my first point I want to share about is just waiting really on God's best for your life. I shared with you that drugs and alcohol was a big part of my life for a long time, actually a decade, and there is a good couple years that I actually don't remember. And in that whole process, it was just me giving myself away to different people. I lost my virginity when I was 16 years old. I was dating a guy for a couple years, and then after that, it was just like, kind of once I crossed that line, it was easy for me to just give myself away. I didn't know the value of my body. And I gave it away in different ways, like through, just destroying this beautiful temple that God has given me through drugs and alcohol and sex and negative self-talk, or just allowing people to come in, not knowing like the importance of setting boundaries and all those things. When I was around 18 years old, I was arrested for my first DUI, and just through probation and everything, ended up in jail for my first time. And I think I was there for like a 12-day stay. And during that time was probably the first time that I had really heard the Lord like pursuing me. And I remember during that time, like every day I would wake up with all these different songs of praise, just playing over and over and over again, just songs of just things that I had heard all through my life in the church. And I remember I woke up one morning and I had this letter that I had written out, and I vaguely really remember writing it, but it was like God was writing through me. He was using just this gift of writing through my life to write me a letter, and he was expressing his love for me. And I remember in there he said, I have somebody for you. Wait on me and let me introduce you to him. Unfortunately, I did not just surrender my life to him at that time. That was kind of the very beginning of my decade of like a downhill spiral into just being crazy, lost in drugs and alcohol. I know what it's like to give your heart away to somebody. When I was 22 years old, I loved a guy like so much. I was living in Utah at the time, just deeply loved him. Like my heart, like I gave it to him, and he just crushed it. And he had his own issues and was involved in drugs and alcohol, of course. And so I was very, very let down, and think I had these expectations of, you know, what love should be and what it should look like and all these things. And so after that relationship, like I say, heartache and heartbreak can almost be something that can like literally kill you. It can take you out. It is so painful. Our hearts were created and designed for God, for him to love us perfectly, and only he knows how to do that. When we give it to a human, when we give our hearts away to a human, that is a very scary place to be, because humans are so imperfect and we hurt each other unintentionally, intentionally sometimes. And so after that heartbreak, it just led me into this very deep downward spiral that went into more drugs, more alcohol, and then just, I wouldn't really commit to anybody. I would never let anybody get too close. I was so hurt. It was like anytime anybody would get a little bit close and see how broken I was, it was like, okay, now you are gonna leave. You know, I just was very scared of love. Love was something that became something very scary. It was something I desired. I just had no clue what love was. And I was giving my body away, and I was giving my mind away. And it was just this, cycle of disaster. And inside, I was like dying. So I want to just come to my second point. Let me just back up. So that is why we wait. You know, you want to wait on God's best. If I would have listened to that promise that God had originally given me, you know, just wait for me. Like, I have somebody for you. Like, I could have trusted him. I could have trusted his voice in that. So my story does continue when it brings me to my second point, that we can be pursued by his perfect love. So after that 10-year cycle, I hit my knees and I just cried out to God. I was very devastated one morning, just after actually waking up after sleeping with somebody I would have never slept with in my right mind. And I was just like, what am I doing? I don't know if you've been there, but I was at this place of like, what am I doing? I feel so broken. I feel so empty. I feel so lost. I feel so out of control. Like, I don't really know what to do. I didn't really even want to be alive. I can't say that I was super suicidal, but I remember like cars driving by and I would be like, you know what, God, if you want to take me out, like I would be fine. Like my life felt very worthless at that time. And, I was running through the woods and I had my dog, and I remember just hitting my knees and I just cried out to the Lord, like, God, I need to change. It doesn't matter what you do. Come rock my world, like do the deep work. And it was like in that moment, I let him in. Like, say, this is our house, right? Our bodies is, and our mind, our body, everything that we are is like this house, I say. And it was like, I opened the door and I let him come in, and I just opened up all the doors to all the rooms. It's like, I know all these rooms are so messy. I know I've only let you into this one room that I kind of keep together, but like, I really need you to come in and change like all of it. I'm sure it's going to be painful and I don't really care what it takes, but I can't do it on my own anymore. I think it was like 3 months later, I got arrested again, but this time it was for my 3rd DUI and it was a felony charge and I was looking at a lot. I was looking at a year in jail and like 10 years probation and a really big fine. But when I woke up in jail that morning, I had this peace within me and I just was like, oh my gosh, the Lord is answering my cry. And I approached it that way. I just stepped in and I was like, you are answering my cry for help right now. And in there, I just started like learning who God was in a different way. Every day I would just start writing the Psalms out and it was like God was teaching me how to pray to him. And my 1-year sentence got dropped to 6 months, got dropped to 3 months, got down to 2 months, and I got to serve my 3rd month in a rehab center. And when I ended up getting out, I ended up having miraculously like 0 fines. My 5-year probation turned into like 9 months. And in that time, it was just this journey of me really starting to become honest. I started using the tools and the resources and the community and the counselors that were placed in my path. And I just started being honest for the first time of where I was at. I was being vulnerable. I was opening my heart. And I was like starting to really allow myself to be pursued in a new way by something greater than myself. I was putting my faith in something much bigger. And he started becoming very alive. And it was because I was letting him in. I wasn't just coming to him when I needed help or when I messed up or whatever. I was literally, even though it was a very imperfect journey, I was allowing him to guide me. I was still very lost. There was still some falls and whatever. It wasn't like I just changed my whole life overnight. It was a journey for me. And in that, I started doing, I had a lawyer actually who was in charge of my life or in charge of my case at the time. And he said, you know, I think it's taken you about a decade to get to where you're at. And I don't think you're this raging drug addict, alcoholic like you think you are. Why don't you give yourself a decade of health? And his fiance at the time was a yoga instructor. And she offered me a free class. And so I started going to yoga classes. And it was there I discovered this passion for bodies and just a new respect of the temple that God had given us. So I wanted to be an instructor. Long story short, I ended up moving out to California and going through a program out there. Well, when I moved out to California, God just really showed up in my life supernaturally in a way like I'd never experienced him before. And he came to me as a gentleman. And in this time, like I was still pursuing men and I was still sleeping around and I was trying to date in a different way, but it was still messy and it was still my way. And I remember just surrendering one day, like just through my practice that I had been developing of really learning and understanding the body. It was like one day I just gave God my body and I was like, you know what? I think I just want to give you my body. Like, I don't want to sleep with anybody. I don't want to be like, feel like this physically, emotionally, spiritually. It just felt like there was something happening inside that I couldn't really explain at the time, but I just was like, I think I want to honor you with my body. And I remember just giving him my body fully and just being like, Lord, this is yours. I went on this journey after encountering the Lord radically. I mean, when I say encounter, I was one way one day and the next day, like I was literally different. He took away a whole desire of like the drugs and alcohol. And I had this hunger to get to know him in a much deeper way. And I had this year where I just really like followed the Lord and learned his voice, but I also learned his love. And he pursued me for this whole year as a gentleman. I mean, it was like I was dating God, or it was like this whole new revelation of like God really became the love of my life. I remember my mom came out and visited me, and she was like, gosh, you're just like so in love with God. Like, and I remember feeling it was like I had butterflies for who God was and what he was doing. There's a story that sticks out to me, and it was when he was training me to hear his voice. And I was taking a walk. I was living in San Diego at the time, and I remember I grabbed like my music and put my earphones in. I was like, I'm just going to take a walk with you, God. And I was listening, and all of a sudden my music just died. And I was like, what's going on? I'm like trying to put it back on, and it just died. And he was like, just walk with me. And I was like, okay. And so like I started walking, and I saw this gentleman carrying these roses, these yellow roses, and colors have always really spoke to me. And I remember just thinking, oh God, those roses are so beautiful. Like, thank you for showing me your roses today. Like, I would have missed that if my music was on. I'm glad I'm listening to you. And I started walking, and I just heard him say, turn around, go back to where you're just at. And I was like, okay. So I turned around, and I went back to where I was at. And that guy that was carrying the roses came up to me, and he was like, can I give you these roses? I was just going to give them to this girl, but she just broke up with me, and I'd love for you to have these roses. And my mouth just dropped, because I was like, God, you're giving me roses. And it was like I had this sweet year of him just really showing me I'm a gentleman. I am strong. I am in control. He provided for me supernaturally that year. Everything was like taken care of, and he showed me like what it meant to really truly be loved by like a good man. Like, I don't know if I can even put it into that word, but he was like the King of Kings, and he was pursuing me, and I felt it, and it was radical. And I got to this point where I was like, you know what? Like, there were some things I was trying to understand in my life at the time, and I just really felt like God called me into a fast. And I did a 40-day fast. And every day during that fast, I started writing out a proverb. My dad, I think, actually told me, you know, if you ever need wisdom, look to the Proverbs. There's lots of wisdom to find in there. And so every day I just started writing out the Proverbs. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but when I got to Proverbs 31, it's all about, you know, it's like the perfect wife or perfect woman, the Proverbs 31 woman, they call her. And I had never really read about her before. And I remember when I started reading through, I was like, you know what, God, like, I could do that. I can partner with this woman. Like, if you could bring me and help me become her, I could maybe be a wife. I never really had this deep desire to be a wife, to be a mom. I just wanted like a companion or a boyfriend. Like, I never had, it just wasn't, I mean, I think at some level we all desire that because we're women, but like, it was really this desire that God started to give me of like, I have more for you than just a boyfriend or a companion. Like, I would love for you to be a wife or a woman of God. And so I was like, okay. And after I like kind of partnered with that, I just was like, I gave it to God. It was just like, okay, I'm going to just partner with you. And it was really shortly after that that I actually met my husband. And the thing about meeting him is he was somebody like I would never have picked for myself. My husband, it was definitely somebody that God had picked, and he had been doing a work in his life as well as my life, so that when we came together, now there was purpose in what we were doing. It wasn't just like, hey, let's date, let's try this out. Like, it was such a different, like, I would pick him now because I know like the blessing, but like at the time, like the way that I was choosing and picking men was out of like this fleshly way. But when I really started to be pursued by the King of Kings and the God who created me, and when he really showed me what his nature and his heart, and when I really just gave it to him, I trusted that he would lead me. You know, it was like when he took my heart could never be broken again. I could never feel that that brokenness of the shattering that some human had been able to do prior, if that makes sense. So my third point is that we have to be okay with letting go. It really was like a dying of myself. Like I had to learn to let go of my ways of finding men to really just learn the heart of God first. He wanted me to get to know him in this way. And it was one of the sweetest years I've ever had in my life. And I love that it ended with me finding my husband. I do want to state, even if I had met my husband, which his name's Angel, he really was like an angel sent to me. But even if I hadn't met him, I had enough in what I had in God. Like he literally was enough for me. I was like, I had this real relationship. We were like in a relationship. I felt like I was dating like the king of the universe. I mean, I just remember being on like cloud 9. It was incredible. And so it was almost like when I started dating a human again, or like being pursued by it was very different, because I was like, well, this is a pretty high standard to live up to, because I've been dating the king of the world, the universe actually. And and it's just been an incredible journey. And so I do want to just say, it does come with a letting go, that we can let go of our ways in exchange for what he has for us. I'll share with you our story of how we met real quick as I wrap up. But, God, he started being very intentional with me and showing me like my ways are so different. I was going to this big mega church out in San Diego, and I've been going there for, I think, about a year. And it was such a big church, it was easy to sneak in and out of all the time. And so I could just hide in there. I didn't really have to get to know anybody. And one day I just really heard the Lord say, it's great you're coming to this church, but I want you to become a part of it now. And I was like, okay. I mean, I was still kind of like in the world, I was still on my journey. And they always had these tables that were out in the lobby. There was like hundreds of ministries you could sign up for. And they always had like a certain few that they would show. And so God had really put leadership in my heart. And when I walked out, I saw leadership. I was like, oh, God, this is so easy. Like I knew right where to go sign up. Well, it was my husband's time, his ministry that he was showing. And it wasn't like, when we met or anything, but it was a start. And the backstory on him is there was a woman that had came up to him and was like, I feel very strongly that I'm supposed to pray for you. And he was like, oh yeah? And she was like, yeah, do you have like a wife or kids or something? And he was like, no, but I would love those things. And she was like, that's what I feel like I'm supposed to pray for you for. And so she went and grabbed another pastor, and the three of them came together and they prayed. And she was like, man, God is preparing a woman for you. Like he has somebody special for you. Like she's ready. And yada, yada, yada. And so that was kind of his story, the same day that we met. So the same day we met, I have this big call, like I gotta go sign up for a ministry. He gets prayed over by his wife. And that day, God allowed us to meet for the first time. And as I started going to that ministry, we started getting to know each other. And him and I laid this foundation, well, it's more him, that we would not kiss until the altar. And we had all these people in our relationship because we had all this accountability because we needed it. He didn't come from this perfect virgin place. I obviously did not come from this perfect virgin place, but I had truly given my body over to God. I had truly let go of something and I had become something brand new. Like God really had made beauty out of ashes. And he did this deep work in me, and he did this deep work in my husband. And when we came together, it was like, okay, we want to do this God's way. And so we just, from the beginning, set the standard that we wouldn't kiss till the altar. We saved ourselves sexually till the night of our wedding. And God has so honored that in our marriage. Having that coming into our marriage, like, has just laid a foundation of like trust and security and safety and so much more. But it's also this testament to my kids, like, hey, you guys, like, I didn't wait, but there was this moment that I regave my body and really all that I was to God, that he would really allow me to be able to be pure again for this wonderful man that he was able to bring into my life, and vice versa. And so just in closing, I would love to encourage you that you would really get to know God first as your first love, that he would really be truly your everything, that he could create this love story through your life. He wants to write your love story, but he wants to be like the main character. He wants to be your Romeo, and he really is capable of doing that. And from there, like, he can bring whoever he wants into your life, or however it wants to go. It doesn't have to be, oh, you get this man, but if you do, trust me, it'll be the one that God has handpicked for you to continue to grow and blossom into who he's calling you to be. Let me just share one more quick story. God showed me marriage with him on a mission trip one time. We were in Mexico, and my husband is Hispanic, and I was sharing my testimony, and he translated it. And like 12 girls gave their life to the Lord. And I remember in that instant, God showed me that's marriage. It's not this like fairy tale love letter like we think it is. It's two people working together for one purpose in God and bringing glory to his name. And so if you do get the incredible honor of being married, it's for his glory. It's for his honor. And I remember just seeing marriage in a whole different light. I was like, wow, we would be powerful for the kingdom together. There's purpose for God in us coming together. It's not just for like, oh, we're going to hook up, we're going to try to make this work. Like, this way that I had thought about relationships and how they should be was so different when I came into this relationship with my husband and how he is. And I really needed that time with the Lord for him to pursue me first, that I would learn his heart and to be his bride first before I could ever be anybody else's. And even to this day, like, God still holds my heart. Like, he really does. Like, there'll be times that are hard, and I'll just be like, you know what, God, you are the king of my heart. You are the Lord of my heart. I gave you my heart. I trust you with my heart. And I believe that your plans and your way and your will is best. And it really did require me letting go. I let go of friendships and relationships and behaviors. I left a whole life to follow him. It has been so worth it. So I don't know where you're at in your journey today. I don't know if you're in a relationship that maybe you know you're not supposed to be in, or if you're just seeking love in all the wrong places, or if you've given your body away, or if you're saving your body. It doesn't matter. I want to come to this place and I want to challenge you that you would really like leave here and be like, okay, God, if you did that for her, if you did that in her life, you can do that to me. You can do that for me. And that you would explore really being the bride of Christ. And so I just want to pray for you. If you would just bow your head and close your eyes. And Lord, I just lift up these women watching, these beautiful, beautiful brides of yours, God. I just thank you so much for how much you care about them, for how much you love them, for how much you like just desire them, Lord. Like, your heart burns for these beautiful, beautiful women. And Lord, I just thank you for purity over them. I just thank you that wherever they've been in their life, Lord, because of your son Jesus, we can stand blameless before you, God. Thank you for that. I just pray that you would direct them, that you would pursue them, Lord, and that what you did for me, that you would do more for them, that you would love them bigger, love them harder, pursue them more, that they would hear more. I just thank you for the ones that are coming in agreement right now, Lord. They're the hearts that hear your voice, Lord. You're so strong. You're a gentleman. Lord, I lift up the pain in the room, Lord, for the heartache in the room, for the heartbreak in the room, Father. You can heal all of that, Lord. I just pray healing over them. Lord, thank you for what you did, for what you're doing, for what you're going to continue to do. We can trust you. We can trust you with our hearts, Lord. We give you our hearts in this moment, just afresh. We just give you our hearts afresh, Lord. You can have our hearts, Lord. And if in your mind's eye, in your imagination, if you could and if you will, just envision literally taking your heart, the sacred place, all these desires, everything that he's placed in you, and literally just handing it over to him and just saying, here you go, God. Here's my heart. If you know what to do with it, I'm going to trust you. And I'm going to tell you it doesn't have to be a perfect walk. But if you are literally giving your heart in this moment, he knows what to do with it and he knows how to lead you. He's a good groomsman. He's a good husband. I promise you. Thank you, Lord. We trust you. We praise you in Jesus' name. All right, ladies. Well, that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for coming today. I hope that you were blessed, and I look forward to connecting with you hopefully sometime. All right. God bless you.